Well, hopefully your day is well up and running as we welcome you to our midday edition of Expresso. Let's talk about what's dominating the headlines everywhere in the world, and of course here in South Africa more now than we've seen in the last few weeks. Our Minister of Health, Dr. William Kize, has shown concern over the recent increase in COVID-19 cases here in the country. But we are not the only country to see a spike in infections. Countries like Spain, Canada, South Korea have all seen their numbers climb after easing lockdown measures. Stands to reason. So here to give us an update on the status of the coronavirus disease in South Africa and to talk us through measures to keep safe, please welcome infectious diseases specialist and a good friend of the show, Dr. Emile Reid. Doc.
Thank you, Graham. Great to be back, man.
I didn't want to seem as desperate as I was to see you happy and healthy, but the last time I spoke to you, you had come through a pretty dark period in your own life. You are a survivor, and by the sounds of things, it hit you pretty hard. How are you now, and what has that recovery process been like?
I'm doing very, very well at this point in time. It took me a while to get over the COVID myself, but I needed to get back. I needed to get healthy, and I needed to get back to the patients that needed me. So I'm back.
You had a job to do. And thank you for doing that. I obviously you've got a snapshot of the efforts that you went, and part of that led to you yourself getting sick because you had to exist on the front line. But I could see to the extent during the worst of the pressure during that time and how stretched you guys were in every area of your field. So thank you so much for fighting as hard as you had to go back into that space again.
Huge pleasure.
You're not one to sugarcoat it for me, and I can remember way back when asking you what I needed to anticipate for, and this was before COVID had hit South Africa, and you said to me, buddy, write off this year. I didn't believe you then. Boy, do I believe you now. So I'm going to expect that same kind of realism right now. Excellent. Where are the numbers at in South Africa at the moment? Are we experiencing a second wave?
Well, at this moment in time, we're sitting with round about 50,000 cases, and just to be true to that, the numbers aren't accurate. Okay. Obviously, there's different strategies of testing, and usually the government decide who gets a test, who doesn't get a test, and that influences the numbers, obviously. And I think the big issue is that COVID is still around. COVID is being spread around, and probably waiting for the correct opportunity to actually cause a second wave.
Is the answer going back into lockdown? Should we be going into lockdown, do you feel?
Well, the answer is probably no. And if we do have to go into a lockdown again, it will probably be a limited lockdown, similar to what the UK is currently doing, where they have a district sort of lockdown, small clusters that they actually sort of treat, and they lock down that specific district from the other, not to allow inter-district sort of spread. The same probably in South Africa we will have to apply, but a national lockdown probably not on the cards. The economy suffer. We have non-COVID related issues popping up. So the answer to that is probably no.
But you don't make the decision.
I don't make the decisions.
Yes. That comes with a proviso. I hear your underlying tone within that. Where are the greatest pressure points? What should we be worried about at this stage?
Well, I think the big issue at this point in time is that all of us are living or trying to live our normal lives, but we also suffer from an underlying illness called pandemic fatigue or COVID fatigue.
Yeah.
And COVID fatigue is when people get tired of being locked down, people get tired of wearing masks, people get tired of mitigation strategies, of sanitizing, and that's when the virus sort of hits. So we're getting tired, but we know the virus is not getting tired at all. So the big thing is to not relax, not to become nonchalant, and to actually continue to follow the public health mitigation strategies that is in place.
And it's easy, and I say that understanding that it's loaded, but it's easy for us to forget about just how serious it is until we've been infected. But once, and we're going to chat to a family member who has been very deeply affected by COVID-19, and that's, I remember the first time we interviewed them, that brought it to bear for me. But it's easy to almost live in denial when you aren't affected by it. What symptoms do we need to look out for? Because it feels different. We've all been tested in studio and we do it regularly. And I had every psychosomatic symptom that you can imagine before my last test because I was so nervous and I was convinced that I had it, but I still had my taste and smell. Is it different for everyone? How did you present? And what should people be really wary of? When do we say, okay, I need a test?
I think, if you remember what we discussed previously and the symptoms and those things, at that point we didn't have a lot of experience regarding this novel virus.
And data,
and data regarding what do we need to see, what do we need to look out for. And obviously we have gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding, myself personally as a patient and also as a healthcare provider, to see that this virus is so dangerous because it can present in different forms, whether you are completely asymptomatic, and that's why young people believe they are invincible, because COVID will not affect them. But we see people that are immunocompromised presenting with different symptoms. People can get dizziness, they can get a lack of smell, lack of taste. They can develop diarrhea the way I sort of, for instance, did. They can develop a sore throat. And COVID can actually present in any form possible. Hence the reason to be scared of it. If you have diarrhea, you might think, well, it can't be COVID. COVID must come with shortness of breath and all these things. But it's not.
It's not that. If you have come into contact with someone who has been tested positive, do you immediately go and get tested? Do you wait until you are showing signs or symptoms? How do you feel about the contact tracing element?
Well, contact tracing, identification, detection, and also tracking of ill people is very important in keeping COVID numbers down. So should you have come into contact with somebody that's been infected, the important thing is not to go and test immediately. The important thing is for you to self-isolate and wait around about 5 days before going for a test. And I mean, the test we have available, and it should be freely available, but as I said earlier, there's different strategies of testing which actually keep certain people away from being tested. And at some stage, we only tested people who has fallen so ill and required hospitalization, which is obviously not correct. So within the perfect world, if you have been in contact 5 days later, you go for your nasopharyngeal swab, and you continue to isolate until then.
Until you get that result.
So if you're negative, you carry on.
Well, I'm picking up so many different elements of what you're talking about here, and I want to get into the broader conversation around just immune protection and being compromised, because I can tell you right now, the stress of this year alone has probably hit me for 6. So I'm going to leave you to think about that, and we're going to make a little immune-boosting smoothie in the kitchen to continue that discussion. But you guys definitely want to stay tuned. Dr. Emil Reid will be preparing that immune-boosting recipe, and we're going to chat to someone very special to the show who we've connected with before, who has an amazing perspective on the coronavirus, something that you definitely don't want to miss. welcome back to our midday broadcast. Now, amidst the looming second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in South Africa, it's important to remember why we are in lockdown, and we've gone through what we've needed to prevent as many further devastating losses as possible. And I stress the word devastating. Joining us to share her family story with COVID-19 is Valine Weber, who is married to comedian and radio personality Carl Weber, who's a good friend of ours on the show. Valine, I can connect with you on a very deep emotional level, because I think what you've had to live through is what everybody fears.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where the story begins. Your mother, Eva, is admitted into hospital with a bladder infection. What happens next?
So Mom obviously goes to hospital the Wednesday for bladder infection. Obviously the last thing that you would think that they would do the COVID test, but obviously on admission, protocol is they do a COVID test, and not thinking that you'd get a result of positive. So the next day, Mom's results came back positive for the virus, which was obviously a total shock. So yeah, after that I think things just spiraled after that.
Your father contracts COVID-19. Both parents are diabetic, as I understand it,
Yeah.
so they have to be treated in separate wards. What follows on from that?
So Dad got his results the 20th, 3 days after, 3 days after Mom. And with that, with that, Dad had to be admitted to hospital. And with Dad being admitted, the immediate family all got tested for corona. Not because of anything, but we were in contact with Mom and Dad. And we obviously wanted to do it for the safety of our family members and whoever we've been in contact, because by then I was the only one going in and out of the house for work. So the only reason why we all got tested was because of safety of others.
Contact.
Yeah.
Then the worst possible outcome. How did you, and we'll talk about you and your brother contracting the virus, because that added another layer of devastation and pain, I would imagine. But what was that experience like, those dark days building up to the worst possible outcome?
So I don't think, you don't think that you'd get that call that somebody or a family member has passed on, because that was the last thing on my mind, because my mom went in for bladder infection. Yes, she was diabetic, and yes, she tested positive for the virus, but I think we believed so much that it couldn't have been that bad, because the information we were getting from the hospital was Mom was stable. So to me is Mom was stable. She was okay. She was doing well. Because by then they were telling me she was eating. That was the day Dad got admitted to hospital. So to me, Mom was getting better. Just that thought of that call, it freaks you out. And both myself and my brother isolated, obviously, at my parents' home, because our spouses were obviously awaiting their results for COVID. So yeah. Now,
You've contracted, were you able to go to the funerals?
No. So both myself and my brother Lester, we tested positive for the virus. And Carl and my brother's wife Lauren tested negative for the virus. So all immediate family, none of us attended their funerals. So we had to watch their funerals on Facebook Live with everybody else. So the people that was there, because we could only have 20 people at the funeral, because they had to be cremated because of COVID. And I thank God every day that it was stated in their wills that they want to be cremated. I think if it wasn't and we needed to do a burial, it would have just spiraled. So
I can scarcely imagine how you find some kind of understanding of what an experience like this is. When you look back on it now, it must still be fresh and it must still be incredibly painful, but how are you keeping yourself together having gone through all of this? What is there something to cling to?
I think that if you have a positive outlook on life, you can move forward. Yes, they say time heals all wounds. I personally believe this is a wound that's going to take a very long time because it's both my parents and they passed away 4 days apart. And that for me, I don't wish on my worst enemy. It's heartbreaking to think that they're both not there.
Hopefully together now.
Yeah.
Carl, obviously, he didn't test positive, and knowing his nature, he called you his quarantiner.
Yes, he did.
And he said that it was divine intervention that he didn't get sick so that he could actually look after you and be able to be that person. How much did it mean to you to have his support and at least to have one anchor in the midst of these stormy seas?
So I always said Carl was in the lion's den because he was in the house with myself and my brother, and we both tested positive for the virus. And I always used to joke with him and say, yes, I know I'm quarantiner, and he said, yes, but I'm the miracle child, hence the brand I'm wearing right now. So he baptized himself as the miracle child because we believe that Carl had to be the healthy one to look after us. And I thank God every day that I married the partner that I did, because they say in sickness and in health.
Yeah.
That was definitely in sickness and in health, because there was a time I told him, I'm sleeping in the spare room because I don't want to give the virus to you. And he joked about it and he says, I got it already, it's fine. I mean, he was bound to get it. The only thing he did lose was taste and smell.
Wow.
And if you know Carl's personality, he joked about it because he'd sit with a whiskey and like smell it and then taste it. And he's like, I'm not getting that taste and smell.
Such a waste. Such a waste.
So, yeah, I think he's a strong person. He was my pillar of strength. And I think he just kept me sane in this time.
You've chosen to use this very bravely, to use this platform, to use the gifts that you have and the network that you have to send a message and to educate people around what's going on. What do you say to those, and I speak specifically to those that aren't taking this seriously, what do you say to people in this country?
All I can say is be safe, wash your hands, sanitize. I'm called Miss Paranoia right now. I carry a bottle of sanitizer with me wherever I go. Be careful. Don't interact with people. Keep that social distance and just love the people around you, because tomorrow is not promised. And in a blink of an eye, things can change. So just be safe and follow protocol.
And change dramatically.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for opening up about this. I know when I first connected with you on an emotional level, when this had almost just happened to you guys, that's when it became very real for me. And that certainly changed my behavior. So hopefully this will help to change a lot of other people's behavior so that we can avoid, in the case of what you've gone through, massive, massive loss. So thank you so much for being brave enough to talk with us today. It's a heavy one, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Keep staying safe, keep social distancing, keep wearing your masks in public. It's not about protecting yourself, it's about protecting other people. We'll continue in a moment. Welcome back. Now, one of the ways you can stay healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic is by eating a nutritious diet. And with a possible coronavirus resurgence in South Africa on its way, the signs are there. It's important to make sure that your immune system remains in tip-top shape. This can be done by eating immune-boosting foods. An infectious diseases specialist, Dr. Emil Reed, is still with us, and he's going to be preparing an immune-boosting green smoothie to help supercharge our immune system. Doc, you've now become a nutritionist as much as anything else. I'm going to ask you in a broader sense, because we forget, I mean, I've suffered from normal flu, which kind of piqued my fear again. All of the usual suspects are still out there doing the rounds. Depression and anxiety can weigh heavily on our immune system, gut health, all of these things. Can we protect ourselves and make ourselves less resistant or less at risk to receive the coronavirus if we boost our immune system?
Well, immune boosting is not an entity on its own. It's obviously an holistic approach where you actually need to drink water, you need to exercise, you need to do all sorts of other things. Immune boosting is probably an important component of getting your immune system healthy and maintaining your immune system. So definitely it's part of it. And we are, unfortunately, what we eat and what we put in our body.
Or fortunately, because it means a simple choice.
Exactly.
Make the choice and you can improve your health.
Exactly. And that is so important. So what you put in your body is what your body is going to use and utilize and actually utilize to maintain your immune system. And that's why we're talking about all these delicious ingredients that we have here.
And they, I mean, it's popping with color, which was a good first sign for me. It's amazing how often baby spinach comes into the mix there. So maybe let's start with that. As you put this together, tell me exactly what's going into this.
Well, this is baby spinach, and I think the important thing is to actually look at, the color. It's got all these antioxidants, flavonoids, and those things are important for our immune system. Pineapple, kiwi fruit, very high in vitamin C, and vitamin C together with vitamin E is probably one of the most important vitamins we can have, especially during this time.
Okay.
Pineapple as well, some antioxidants, some vitamin C in here as well. I'm not going to put everything in here. And then some
ginger by the looks of it, yeah.
Some ginger. And ginger consists of something called allicin. And allicin, I always tell my patients that it sounds like penicillin. So it's almost like an anti-infective substance that one can use that will also protect your immune system. And then we have some, want to guess?
A little bit of honey.
Some honey. And some lemon.
Lemon juice.
And some lemon juice. And to round it off, we're going to add some almond milk.
Okay.
And you would ask yourself, why almond milk? Because it consists of selenium. Selenium, zinc, all those micronutrients are extremely important in the fight for COVID and against COVID. Vitamin D, being in the sun, calcium plays an important role. So we need to make sure that we stock up with our vitamins. And I mean, you can decide whether you're either going to have it as a nutritional meal at this point, or whether you're actually going to have it in pill form, or you...
I think
let's see.
A bit skew there.
It's a little bit
So we've got 30 seconds. I'll give you a hand there. I've got to be at least some use in the kitchen here. What is your last piece of advice for our viewers out there?
Well, I think the important thing when it gets to nutrition is you need to some vitamin C, you need some vitamin E, some vitamin D. You can take it in a pill formation, you can take it in an IV formulation, or you can take it as an amazing smoothie.
And that's what
which
we're
we
gonna do
are
right now.
going to do.
All right, so you can find it on expressoshow.com. As we whip this one up, I'm going to say thank you so much to all of our guests this morning. Doctor, thank you so much. Valdine, I've absolutely loved having this perspective today. So thank you to all of you for tuning in this morning. Hopefully this has inspired you to go out there and live a healthier life. Beautiful.
Another feel-good production.